a beer.
This will be a ripper, says Ryan and Mel. It is. It's going to be more exciting this show than when Rex Hunt found the elusive Barramundi. I am your host, Mohamed Oz, and as always, I'm joined by three esteemed members of the selection panel. First, introducing the man who is the most happiest man of all time. He was always positive, even when Carlton were losing to Essendon. He still found a way to smile. The lovely, amazing, the mysterious Mr. Ian from the Navy Blue Corner. How you doing?
Oh, mate, pumped as always. Love the introduction. It always gets me even more pumped up. You sound very positive, but the way you hype me up, it's easy to be that way. And the Blues are in a prelim, one game, one win away from a grand final. It's just the best feeling, isn't it?
Mental scenes, to be honest. It is mental scenes. And a man who has got a different background this time. I'm questioning his levels of inebriation this time because he does remind me of most of the music students in year 11 in their dorm room. Leg Dog, how you doing?
I'm well, mate. Just down the beach, down at Venus Bay, having a nice, relaxing couple of days before a big final. And yes, I would say that generally I'm not sober down here, so I think that's a good assumption to make.
Mate, I mean, it's the woolly hat and the hoodie inside.
It's very cold down here. There's no heating. I'll tell you what, though, we're only 1 week away from me having to bloody come up with a new rap because the boys are bloody going to do it.
Well, I mean, at the moment, you look like you've had a few Bob Marleys. So, I mean, I reckon
a few Hong Kongs.
The Hong Kongs, the old Hong Kongs.
Tell you what, Gav called it. And finally, a man that I deeply offended. And before I introduce him, I need to apologise to the Italian and the Asian community for saying that spaghetti is just 2-minute noodles in Italy with tomato sauce. The dulcet tones, the man with voice like garlic butter, SEN's own Paolo Sebastiani. Paolo, how are you doing?
Oh, very well. I was going to get to that if you hadn't got to it before me, but no. In fettuccine, out spaghetti for mine. So that's my team selection this week. You did well to offend. How many was it? Over 2 billion people on the planet.
Not many people can use a sentence and alienate nearly 50% of the globe. But I have had more DMs complaining about that than anything I've said. And I've said some pretty left field things. I didn't realise that would have been so easy to offend people. If I knew that, I would have gone with it a lot earlier. But
oh, yes.
There we are. You live, you learn. I learned the difference between fettuccine and spaghetti. We've got a big selection, as you've all said. We are a game away from the grand finals. We are a game away from our destiny. Big game against Brisbane. And we'll start off with Mr. Positivity himself. Ian, you have usually been accused of breaking the stereotype, but simple selections, explain it.
Yeah, I've gone rogue a few times. I think last week there was some big changes, but I know I've gone a bit calmer this week, and I like it. I really like the simplicity around this, to be honest. There's a few guys that maybe I've tried to drop, like a Chincotta in recent weeks, but they came out and played a decent game on the weekend, so it's hard for me to really drop a lot of these guys. The big decisions really came down to, we've got 2 big ins, Mackay and Martin have to come in. Who's making way? It's kind of, I guess, we need Mackay in. He is an elite marker, elite pressure. The goals will come. Don't worry about that. The goals will come. We're a much better team when he's in. Charlie's better when he's in and making way. Look, Kennedy was the last in. Didn't love him in that forward role. So unfortunately, I don't want him there. Looking in the midfield, we've got plenty. I just can't squeeze him in. I don't have a role for him that others aren't already ahead of. So Kennedy, unfortunately, makes way. And then Martin has to come in, much like Harry, adds the goals, adds the pressure, creates so much as well. Looking at the rest of the forwards in the team already, you got Owies, goal kicker, pressure, can mark. Motlop's the goals out of nowhere. Cottrell adds to the wing, beautiful across the half forward, playing some great finals footy. Cunners is kind of that guy that just hasn't maybe had the form so far. It's a tough role being that half forward. You can get lost a little bit. Sometimes you just don't win a lot of the ball. But if you're really the only one, because Fogarty's in there with that manic pressure playing well, can go into the midfield. He's like the only one that isn't 100% performing. So unfortunately, he's probably stiff to make way. But those are kind of the changes. And Ollie Hollands is the sub as well. Do you have any questions? The chat and you guys in the panel.
I think it's straightforward. I mean, with Hollands as sub, I will ask this question. Did you think, and I'm sure Gary Brown's in chat somewhere, X Factor Cunners at the Gabba, dry deck? I know he's been subbed a few times. I agree with you. Do you think Cunners just is more versatile than Hollands, as we know Hollands will be on the wing? Cunners pinch hit in the midfield, likes a bit of forward time, gives you a little bit of options because it is a make or break game.
Yeah, and it was something I definitely wrestled with. I do love Cunners, and I think he can really offer something being that sub. I normally have all season been like, I want that guy that has a bit of pace, can be someone in that front half. I want an attacking sub, and maybe Cunners is a bit more of that way compared to a Hollands. And look, Hollands was a little bit panicky when he came on in the final. He's a little bit young, showed a bit of inexperience, but once he settled into the game, I know it was only a quarter or so, but I felt like when he got near the ball, something was going to happen. He was going to break away, and the tackle pressure late was unreal. So I'm not concerned about the inexperience with the Hollands coming on as sub. Really, the reason for him being the substitute was just knowing I've got Doherty now with the shoulder. I've already had Akers with the collarbone and shoulder, both very, very much going in with some injuries. I believe both will 100% get through the games because they're tough as nails. And I think Doc said himself, like, the scans to his shoulder aren't going to determine whether he plays or not this week. It just depends whether he's getting surgery at the end of the season. They'll be playing through anything, but knowing there's a bit of pain there, if I'm tossing the coin between the two, I'm going towards the guy that can maybe play a bit more of that wing role, knowing if there's any position on that field that we're a little bit underdone injury-wise, it is the wing. But it's a great shout, and I think the only other player I was maybe thinking of bringing in was Sauce, but I don't know. Do you bring in a player that hasn't really played football? And that's probably why Sauce has been my big snub. I just haven't seen him play any footy in a month or so.
I think we saw Kennedy do that, come in and not be that effective. I know he kicked a goal, but he really didn't do what he was brought in to do. So from that point of view, I'm probably with you on not bringing in a J-Sauce as much as it's popular and people would like it. I think if you bring a J-Sauce in, you have to mess with the rucks, and I don't think they're going to mess with the rucks. So I think you've got a decent, I think you've got a very good side here. Spoilers very similar to mine. And I think Hollands is good insurance, right? I think if they're really that worried about Doc and Akers, they might even find a way to get Hollands in the best 23. But I think as a break glass in case of emergency, like we saw last week, I think he's as good an option as any. I think there might be a couple of guys I've got ahead of him if you take Doc and Akers at their word. That if they promise us, if they look us in the eyes and promise us they're not going to get hurt, I think there's probably better options.
Very fair.
Yeah.
Paolo,
no questions from me. No questions from me. I'm you'll see with my team selection very shortly that Ian and I come from a very similar school of thought with regards to all this. So it's going to be tough to make a whole lot of changes with a team that's just got into a preliminary final. But I think it's the obvious, but we don't know. But no questions from me, Ian. I like the way you've argued your point very succinctly as well.
Well, Paolo,
yep,
identical team.
Identical team.
Good
Ian
looking
and I
team.
are shaking hands. We are shaking hands this week. Yes. Look, Cunningham stiff. Clearly, I think you can make an argument for him to potentially get another go because of what you said, Pommy, with regard to the conditions and the setup in this game might favour him a little bit more. You look at the first two games that we played; they were in tight in the clinches, high turnover game, and he just wasn't really able to get involved a lot in between the arcs, which is, something that's he needs to start to get his hands on the ball a bit more. And I don't think the scenarios have really suited him, but we do know that he can rotate through the middle, him and Fogarty as well. But I just feel that with Martin and Mackay coming in, I think that improvement we're going to get out of them in the forward line, I think we'd be happy just to go one more rotation less through the midfield and throw potentially someone else through there as well, rather than Cunningham. And he's had two goes at it. And look, granted, he's been okay and he kicked an important goal against Sydney, but I just feel we need more. We need more out of that forward line. We need more out of him. We need more out of someone who's going to rotate through the ball and be through that half forward line as well. So he's a bit stiff, but because he's part of a winning team, but that's just how it is. That's the nature of the beast. So, and Mackay is just, Kennedy, he played a role and was clearly, he was underdone. And Lever and May are two absolute freak intercept defenders. But I think his role, the fact that his role was so defined on the weekend that he still wasn't able to lock Lever down for bits and pieces was a little bit disappointing. I know he had some big moments. He kicked that goal and set up Owi's goal, but Mackay straight in for him. It's not even an argument. I wouldn't have thought so. Very simple for me. And the back line stays the same. Maybe there's a chance that they could swap maybe a Chincotta over for someone else, but I think I want to keep that back line settled because they're going to be under the pump against a Brisbane forward line that's arguably, if not the best forward line in the competition. So the area I think we can really get them, and the argument that could be made in rebuttal to me taking Cunningham out is their midfield. Is that if we can rotate sort of 7 to 8 bodies through there, that's an area of the ground that I think we can get them. Because as much as they've got some handy guys in there like Neil and Dunkley, I actually think we bat a little bit deeper through there, and we could bat really deep if Cunners is to stay in the team. But those are the two changes for me. It's pretty obvious.
Would you say?
You go, Pommy.
If there was, let's just say, heaven forbid, playing devil's advocate, let's say that if the scans revealed that it was a dislocation of Doc,
right,
and let's say that I'd imagine someone at the club's going to have to be really ballsy and say, Doc, you're not playing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's just say Doc couldn't get up for this game. Let's just say, heaven forbid that happens.
Yep.
What would you do then? Would you just move Cottrell to the wing, Cunners comes in and he plays across half forward instead of Cottrell? Or how would that look to you? Would you bring Hollands in? What would your plan be in that?
Yeah, I think Hollands comes in. I do think Hollands comes in if that's the scenario, really. And we've also seen, and Voss also mentioned, and we've seen it throughout the year, that Akers, I know his collarbone's stuffed, but Akers has been the one that can play a little bit deeper as well. So I think it's going to be a case of, it might even be a case of Moneyball, because you can't replace Doc. How can you replace Doc? You can't replace him with one player because Doc is Doc. He's got his own skill set, and the role that he plays, I think, would have to be made up by others, if that makes sense. So, the output that we may get from him needs to be made up from two blokes. So whether or not that means Hollands comes into the team, and we've seen Doherty play across the wing as well. So I think you can butter up that side of the park defensively and offensively too, with Hollands and Akers potentially operating on the same side. Maybe Akers playing a little bit more of a defensive role and Hollands getting a bit more ahead of the ball too, and Cottrell playing on the other wing. So I think that's probably how they would approach it. I want to see if, as you said, if it's devil's advocate, I want to see them bring in an aggressive inclusion for Doherty. I don't want it to be a defensive-minded thing. I want it to be. And I think Hollands would be that aggressive type because he's outside, he's a wing as well. He gets the ball on the outside and he can hurt you on the outside too.
Mate, love it. Black Dog, you had a question for the young gentleman?
It was more of just Paolo, you talked about do we have enough guys to still rotate through if Cunningham's not in there? I think we do. I think you've got 5 core mids. we've seen at times Akers have gone inside, Cottrell can push up. Fogarty's basically been playing in the midfield for the last couple of weeks. So I think we're fine without Cunningham. It's just the question that everyone's going to be asking themselves, that you think of all the highlights he brings and those clutch moments where all of a sudden he makes a huge swing. Can you afford to live without that? I think with Martin and Mackay coming in, I think you probably can. It's a tough call, but we've said this for 6-7 weeks now. Some of these guys are just going to have to come out of the team.
Well, and Martin and Mackay are, I mean, that's they're as aggressive as inclusions as you can get, both the pure forwards now at the moment. And if there is a case where they wanted to rotate one of those forwards on the ball, it could be, well, we've seen it be Lockie Fogarty, but it could also be, and I know it's a final, but there could be a time where they may rotate Martin on the ball for a stoppage or two, or there could be a time where they rotate, Motlop, because we've seen Motlop do it in VFL. I know we haven't seen it a lot during these games and during this season, but if it so happens to be a case where they want to do it for one or two stoppages, they can do that. So that's what I'm looking at. I think the improvement and percentage improvement we'll get out of bringing Martin and Mackay in, and maybe taking away half a rotation of Cunningham out of the midfield, I think is going to benefit us more percentage-wise and just from an output perspective as well, because I think the flow-on effect of Mackay and Martin coming in means that Motlop gets free, means that Charlie gets free, and I think that's a little bit – I think that is far more beneficial to our team than it would be if we kept Cunningham in there.
Charlie not having to play on Lever and May this week is going to be an incremental improvement to this side.
But see, this is now that look. I understand that too, but Charlie's done it without Harry the last couple of weeks as well. So there were moments in that game where Charlie got ragdolled a bit, which was a bit. There was that passage of play in that last quarter where I think it might have been Newman going inside forward 50. May just pushed him out of the way.
Yeah.
Like he's also got to be. I think he's got to get in that frame set, and we know he's not of that, but he's got to get in that frame set that just because Harry's going to come back in doesn't mean that it's all just going to work your way.
No, but I think it probably reduces the wear and tear on him throughout a game. Yeah. So that moment you mentioned where he does get ragdolled late in the game, it happened, but then we saw equally at the Gold Coast game, he goes into defence and takes a bloody massive contested mark. Exactly. And I think it's not so much about him not being accountable when Harry's not on the team, but more about just making his life a bit easier, because he doesn't get to get off the park that much. And when you've got two guys banging into you for the full game, it's just gonna. Like it's a game of inches and stuff at that point. So any little bit you can get helps. Yeah,
exactly. Like I said, I'm not overthinking this too much. It's just for me, it's who's going to make way, and it's two players who have played predominantly in the forward line that are going to be replaced by two very good forward players. Simple as that, really. And the rest of the team just stays as is.
Every little helps, as the old lady said as she pissed into the sea. Ian, have you got any questions?
I've got a couple. Even though love the team, clearly agree with it, and I think just to touch on one more thing from Hollands in this kind of like debate as well. What I love about Hollands coming on late, which is why I sort of chose him as well over Cunningham, was just always looking to take the game on. I think a lot gets spoken about Cunningham's like X factor and obviously very clean footballer, but I just love the idea with Hollands that, if the game's tight, late, he just always wants to get the ball moving. And I think that that's just such a key thing. When I think that gets lost a little bit in the discussion with Hollands, we sometimes just say he's just a winger, that's fine. But I think there's that positivity. But talking about that, last week, you were one, along with me, that wanted to bring in a Zach Fisher, potentially down back to add to the ball movement. I think this week, there were times that we just turned the ball over in positions of strength where we really didn't need to, whether that was poor decision-making, poor skill error, whatever the reason was. We don't want to be doing that this week against Brisbane because they're a team that is just going to hurt you so much more than I think Melbourne will. Did you have much thought about bringing in a player like that? What sort of changed your mind this week on sticking with that defence, and how can we kind of overcome that deficiency that we saw against Melbourne?
I think it's just a case of the guys ahead of the field presenting far better than what was on offer this weekend. So I think there's going to be a lot more space in that forward line with Jack Martin and Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow all making leads left, right, and centre, which makes it easier for guys up the field to be able to move the ball. Let's not forget too. I mean, Melbourne defensively are.
Yeah.
I mean, they are very, very strong.
As good as us.
And have been for years. And that had to be their strong suit coming into finals, because we know their forward line is as tricky as it is to match up on. As Pommy said throughout the whole week, they've got those awkward medium-sized forwards that can get you either way. But I think it's more what's happening up the field that's going to allow our ball movement to be a lot better. And again, too, I mean, I know it may be a little bit of an intangible thing that manifests itself out onto the field, but that whole crowd factor, sometimes playing the moment a little bit too much, being a little bit overawed. I think they've started to get a little bit more composure in those big moments as well. And we saw the composure come to the fore with that last passage of play in the game. I know it was go for broke, but all those kicks were absolutely perfect, and the passages of play were sensational. So I don't think those blokes in the back line, and this was our argument at the start of the year. This is why everyone was losing their fucking collective minds. The bloke that when people, and remember Pommy, when we were losing our shit, when people were saying, "Oh God, these players, they can't kick. They can all kick. They can all kick. It's just what's happening ahead of you and around you that makes you look like absolute garbage, and that's the problem. And then you think, oh God, these blokes, now all of a sudden they can kink because everything ahead of the ball's working, everything behind the ball's working. So they've all got composure, ball in hand, these blokes. It's just what's happening up the field as well that is going to, one, help them, and two, understanding the moment and understanding when to go and when not to go. And that, they speak finals experience, whatever that means, better for the run is probably what I'm looking at coming into this game.
Oh, absolutely love it. Spoken so well.
Wow.
Thank you.
Everyone's making convincing cases, and we come on to a half-cut black dog with our first with our first change. Our first change. He's gone the Cunners route. Black dog.
Yeah.
Explain these.
So
I like it.
So this is twofold. One, I think it's potentially the right call, and two, I wanted to have Cunningham in the discussion from when we're picking the team. So there's a little bit of, the easy answer is Hollands, but I wanted to keep Cunningham in the discussion. So I think, given how inexperienced we are as a team in finals, I think having the guys who have played the two finals in the team is super important. Mackay and Martin don't count because they're guaranteed to come back in. If we're backing Doherty and Akers into play and they're deemed fit to play, and I know Holland's had some good moments in the fourth quarter there, but I think we've got to take them at their word that they're able to play and not kind of hedge our bets to cover it. I think we can cover them. If they do go down with injury, I think we can cover them with the guys we've got in the team, with your Cottrells, and you wouldn't want to do this, but with your Walshes. There are some players in the team already that can go out to the wing. What I think Cunningham can offer us, given he's only been playing sort of 60 to 70% of game time anyway, he keeps, when he doesn't get subbed, he still doesn't play the whole game. He can be an impact player in the same way that a Jack Martin can be, or a Charlie Curnow or a Motlop can be. He can do that. He just hasn't been able to run out the full game. So I like the idea of bringing him in as that injection of a bit of explosiveness if we need it towards the end of the game. When he touches the ball, he does really good things. He's just kind of getting gassed and not able to be out on the park touching the ball the whole game. So I don't mind the idea of giving him a shortened stint. I know Holland's had a really good couple of moments and really good pressure and a couple of clutch tackles and stuff there, and he was awesome. He was absolutely epic in that fourth quarter. I don't know how replicable it is for him, and I don't know how easily he can just switch that on. Whereas I know I've seen quarters from Cunners where he just comes out of nowhere and kicks 2 goals and gets a couple of assists. So that's kind of the thought there. The rest of the team's the same. I don't want to bring in anyone who hasn't already been in the finals. So I considered a Chincotta out or a Marchbank out for a smaller defender. But I do think now that I never thought finals experience mattered, and now I've seen our team play a couple of games in finals, like, oh shit, yeah, no, this matters. So I'm just trying to not shake the boat too much, but keep a little bit of impact on the sub.
Mate, I mean, I like it. I like the Cunners one. 2 questions from the audience before mine. Let Dog, were you the guy that wrote the rap in How I Met Your Mother?
No, I wrote the rap, and there is references to How I Met Your Mother in there, which really dates it not very well.
And when was the last time we saw an X Factor Cunners? This is a good question. I mean, I would say
question.
Tasmania 2017 versus Hawthorn.
Yeah. I think his composure in moments like X Factor doesn't necessarily mean he's running in and kicking snaps like Motlop did. Like X Factor's being able to impact, and last week we saw him kick a clutch goal. He's had a few great goal assists. Yes, he's not as explosive as we probably imagined him when we're thinking, opening game against Richmond, snaps the ball for the opening goal of the season. But I do think he can still be really impactful and has been. And he's clean. I think he makes stuff happen when he touches a ball, which for me is a big factor of what I want my sub to do. It didn't work as well with Motlop last week, for instance, right? And he's an impact player, so that could be a point against, as has been pointed out in the chat. But I just tend to think Cunners is. I think we're better with Cunners in the team, but I don't have a spot for him in my 22.
I love it. Lads, any questions? Ian, we'll start with you. Any questions for young Lek Dog? He's dead. Rolled the dice.
Yeah, no, that was honestly going to be the question I had written down, was just my point on Cunners to play sort of devil's advocate was, have we seen that X factor that we're all sort of subscribed with Cunningham this year, or when was the last time? I'm just thinking back now. I feel like there was the game in the COVID season against North Melbourne. He kicked a nice couple of goals late to sort of seal the game. And so you sort of answered that one over sort of why Cunningham over Holland. So that was honestly that kind of question answered. I don't have much else because the team sort of makes a lot of sense. Was there also, I guess, a thought, since we're debating the sub, just about more sort of versatility in the front half around that? And if you're targeting, I guess, straight away, who's the guy that you may be thinking of subbing out of the game already? Do you have much of a plan around that? I know things change in game, but do you have much of a discussion towards that?
Well, what I like about Cunners, right, is that if an Owies isn't performing, or a Cottrell's not performing, or hell, a Mackay, his concussion comes back, something like that, you can play Cunners forward of the ball. If one of the wingmen needs to come out, you can play Cunners forward of the ball and move a Cottrell higher up the ground. So I just think he gives a little bit more flexibility. And I don't want to undersell Hollands, because I know at juniors and in the reserves, he's done a multitude of roles. But primarily what we've seen from him in the seniors has been that wing role, which isn't a bad thing. But I don't want us to be stuck in a position where we have to bring him in and play one of the other guys out of position, I guess. And look, I think it's a much of a muchness, whichever guy comes in and is the sub for us. I think we've got such a strong squad at the moment. It's for me, it's just a discussion. Are we hedging our bets against injury, or are we looking for a senior body who could potentially come in and as a tactical sub?
Love it.
Paolo, have you got any questions for him?
Yeah, Kennedy as potentially as a sub. Is that? I mean, if you look at Cunningham and him, they're both are different players. But Kennedy, we've seen now he has played that forward role in a final, and look, albeit he had moments, but wasn't really used to great effect, I don't think. Is it a case of were you really erring on the side of maybe getting him in because he's flexible as well? Because if you look at him, he's played halfback, midfield.
I don't think we should speak about the halfback bit, but yeah.
I know. But if it so happens to be that they want to do something like that, I know I don't want to see that too, but I think his flexibility as well, and what you said about Cunners, could also potentially see him ahead of. Because funny you say that, I actually think, I don't know what you think about this, lads, but Kennedy's output on the weekend, I know they played different roles, but his output on the weekend was a bit better than Cunners, would you suggest?
I think it's
always goal.
Yeah,
I don't know.
he did have three. He had 3 shots on goal. He probably didn't achieve the goal he was in there to do, but in terms of output, he probably did have a bit more output. I just, for whatever reason in my head, I just don't love a team that has Hewitt and Kennedy in it. Maybe that's the David Teague in me, but I just, but to be honest, it's the same argument, right? Kennedy, Hollins, Cunningham, Fisher, you name them. It's the beauty of the list we've put together is, and the reason all these guys are in the team is because they all are versatile. It's just which one are you going to back? I'm not adverse to any of these guys being in the team or being the sub, but I'm just putting Cunningham in because I was worried that if I didn't, he wouldn't be eligible for selection.
Right. It's funny. I think too the fact that we look back at the Kennedy role and watching back the replay and actually looking at the moments, and people were very, very critical of Charlie's game and the fact that got to play on Lever and May, and Kennedy, we didn't come in. He didn't quite have the effect that we wanted to. But I think his output was a little bit more than Cunningham's. And if you actually look at Charlie, ultimately, I know if my grandmother had wheels, she'd have been a bike. He's 2 fingertips away from a 3-goal game.
Yeah. When
you think about it, that shot in the first quarter and then the shot, when was it? Was it in the last? Yeah, where he swung around. So, he's fingernails away from a 3-goal game, and then everyone's saying, look, Kennedy played the role, freed up Charlie. Charlie's kicked 3 goals. So, I don't know. There's probably 2 schools of thought that way.
Oh, I like it. Oh, Matt, just going to go grab a drink. I'll be back. I'm still listening.
I think that it's a really good point with the Kennedy as well, that for pretty much the majority of this season, the sub has been a midfielder. And only the last couple of weeks, we've kind of seen, I guess, that changing. And it's a good point you bring out of, well, Kennedy can play multiple roles. And I think if you look at output, the best that they brought last week, I think Kennedy 100% set up more, kicked the goal, offered more at his best. It was just the role that he was asked to play. He probably didn't nail it, but if he was playing Cunner's role, would you have maybe gotten more? Potentially. And I can't remember who in the chat brought it up, mentioning with, Cripper, with Doc and a few of those boys in the midfield being a little beaten up and worse for wear. It's not the worst thing to potentially have a Kennedy-like sub or a Dow-like sub, a guy that can come in and help that midfield. It's a decent shout, and it could definitely be something they look to do, considering it feels like we've gone for that sub 90% of this season.
Yep. Love it.
It is worth mentioning as well last week that even though Kennedy was in the team, he had 0% midfield time. And we used players like Cunners and Fogarty were preferred. So I think Voss, totally like what Let Dog's saying, I think Voss is the same school. I don't think Voss likes Kennedy and Hewitt in the same midfield. I think there's a reason for it as well. I think this game here, you're talking about the number one side with the ball in the midfield we're going up against. So Carlton will be wanting to be able to play football against them. They won't want to fucking slow it down because the teams that have slowed it down against Brisbane have got peppered.
Yep.
Well, you all want something different. And
yes, of course.
It's not often Pom is bold, right? In this team selection thing. I've usually been fairly sensible, but there's going to be a lot of questions about this one.
What's going on here, mate?
And here we are.
Spaghetti's.
I'm ready. Welcome to Political Pom. Right? I'm ready. Right. So I went, and I thought about this, right? So I've gone Mackay, Martin, Jesus, Boyd in. Out goes Kennedy, Owies, Cunningham, and my mate, Pom Cotter, goes out as well. My mate goes out, right? So
always.
There's a reason, right? So I had a look, right? I had a look at Brisbane, and Brisbane's home record at the Gabba, although impressive, they've had a lot of close wins there. So I went back and watched the Saints game, which they won by 12 points, 2 goals. I went back and watched the Crows game, right, which they won by a goal. I went back and watched all their 2-3 goal wins and seen how the teams did it, and they've got some demolitions, right? And the demolitions were all when teams went conservative with the myth against their forward line, and how they move the ball, right? So Boyd came in straight away. The reason being is I looked at him statistically, and over the last 6 weeks versus Boyd's year, Boyd has more tackles, more pressure acts, and more one-on-one wins than Chincotta. And looking at how they move, Newman will traditionally, under Voss, has taken Cameron every time, and he's got a winning record, and he plays high half forward. So that's going to be a pocket job. And looking last week, we conceded 4 goals from loose kicks in the back. Bring in the better kick, and look to take on their forward press, because the teams that have taken it on with heavy corridor loose have genuinely had success versus Brisbane. Midfield stays the same. Don't want to touch it. Jesus comes in. Jesus is our number 1 forward at creating repeat stoppages. And the way that we can beat this side is you are looking at the 15th worst stoppage side in the league. That is our one word. Get it in, get it onto the deck, get it tacked, right? Always, his tackle numbers inside 50 have gone astronomically down over the last 8 weeks, and he's been played as a poacher. Cottrell's there for poachers. Fogarty has got the hard press. And the reason to answer your question, Sean, Boyd is a superior defender than Fisher. That the numbers aren't even in the same postcode. So I still want defence. Marchbank, Hamill did his interview today that Carlton are going to go for intercept galore, so they will play 4 tolls down the back. That was my team. I thought, give ourselves the best chance. Jesus, probably the surprise inclusion. 2 things for that. 1, I really need affirmation from random people on the internet, and the easiest way to do that is bring Jack Silvani in. Serious, though. Seriously. The second reason is that creating stoppages, bringing the ball to ground, forward pressure versus always, it's going to be the ability to kick goals, where Jesus gives us another target. And I look at their backline, and they are vulnerable from aerial skills. And Motlop, Fogarty being massive with their tackle pressure. Jesus is that rabbit in the hole. Harry working up the ground. Jesus coming in. Martin smoking in. I feel that team there is as aggressive as we can go in a game that is, if you lose it, you get sent home. So why leave anything in the shed?
I love it. It's real. That's this massive. Is real horses for courses type stuff. I love this. He's going from Flemington to Mooney Valley. You need a different horse, mate. You need a different horse.
Boyd, field questions.
Boyd for Chincotta, I can understand and don't totally disagree with. Jesus for Owies, I can understand and don't totally disagree with. What I don't think we should be doing is bringing 2 players that haven't played in 6 or 7 weeks into the side. So Jesus has obviously missed through injury, and Boyd missed through suspension, then VFL, and then no VFL games. So I would be content with one of these guys making the team. I don't want to carry both, just the risk of fitness and the risk of match time and match fitness. I could see a world where you have Jesus as the sub, to be honest, but I don't want to put them both through the full game. And I also worry using Jesus purely as a forward when he hasn't had the run in the legs. Does Pito play ruck full time? I think there's just one too many talls in that forward line for my liking. But I'm open to arguments for getting one of them in the team if I'm picking the team.
I like it. My argument is Boyd has only been suspended, so people forget. He's been suspended. He is partaking all match sim. He's been partaking in training full time, 24 hours a day. So for me, that fitness argument, he will be prime specimen. So if they risked anyone else throughout the final season with Kennedy, Boyd is head and shoulders above him for fitness, and he's already a fitness freak. Jesus, the way Jesus plays the game, you look at Jack Silvani, and you're not thinking athlete, you're not thinking about quickness, you're not thinking about speed.
Yeah, that's what worries me, because when he's at full fitness, he can't run.
Yeah, but my argument is, should he be past fit, which is what we're assuming in this scenario, he is literally there to do what he does in his best moments, which is be the marking target, put the pressure on. Like I said, always his pressure has gone downhill, right? in the last 6 weeks. So pressure is paramount against these guys. And we've got enough pace there to deal with their quick players. They've got their slower players where Jesus can affect that. And this is where I debated what you were saying. Was it Cunningham or was it Hollands? Because if I have Cunningham, I want my sub to be someone who can affect the game. I don't want it to be someone like Jesus, who I would say if Jesus is sub, that is a quarter to go, you're 4 goals down, hope it happens. It's a lot easier to flip it in game the other way and go, right, Connors comes in, go smaller, go a little bit more pace. So I figured that game there, prime conditions on Saturday for aerial football, go hard.
One more from me. Do you see Newman? I know you mentioned he'll play on Cameron. Is he taking the Chincotta role this week and Boyd's more of an outlet?
I think when you look at how Charlie Cameron's played in this last season, he's gone higher up the ground, so he's no longer that forward pocket.
So Newman just goes with him.
He's playing at half forward. So my argument here, and this is what Voss did really well with Cameron last time. He's done it well with Toby Green when Newman's played on him, and he did it well last week as well. I thought with the Fritsch matchup, is give Cameron something responsible. Newman is in form, 30 touches. Cameron ain't going to be able to cozy out the back and kick goals. He's going to have to defend. So I figured Boyd there, that's the one weakness last week and the week before against Sydney, loose kicks. Boyd will hit the corridor hard. And that's what Carlton need to do to get through their forward press. So bring in horses for courses. I love Pomcotter. He's my boy. But I want to win. I want to get in the grand final. And against GWS, against Collingwood, Pomcotter probably comes in. But this is horses for courses. Beat them at what they're strong at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love the selections because I think you have to be aggressive if you want to beat Brisbane. So I love the fact that you've gone for it and made a massive discussion point around it. I think the Boyd one, for everything you have brought up, makes a lot of sense. I mean, Boyd was best 22 until he was suspended. And if he doesn't get that suspension, he probably is still in this team. And you sort of made that great point of, look, if Newman's getting taken away and playing that defensive role that Chincotta's played, you need someone to replace him. And I just don't think that's Chincotta to take over Newman's role. So Boyd makes complete sense. The big contentious one there's obviously J Sauce. I think with Owies, I've got sort of a bit of a question around it, is just that I think Owies has probably been a little bit down, obviously, the last couple of weeks. Potentially playing slightly different without having Motlop in there one week and then having Martin not in there the other week. Did that kind of change up the way Owies has played, not having those guys that have maybe got the best out of him with that forward mix? Do you think that's played maybe a role in why he hasn't had the best brought out of him? And was that a consideration at all, just that forward line mix with Matty Owies getting the best out of him?
What I did is I went back when I thought of JSOS over Owies. I think that when you've got Motlop, Fogarty in there, right, they are providing the tackle pressure. So Owies has just been in there for the last 2 weeks for goals. And then I went back and watched the St Kilda game where JSOS kicked 2, and it was the last game that he stopped being not a ruck. He had great success staying in the forward pocket and basically playing the Owies role, be the guy out the back. And I figured here JSOS is superior tackling, superior in the pressure numbers and vicinity against the kicker. I love Owies, but Owies is there basically for a shirt pump. But JSOS, back of the contract, the only Silvani not to play in a final for this football club. I think that story there adds that 10% to Jack already, but also it gives you that problem because we've got pace all around the ground. In the forward line, Carlton's tradition isn't pace, it's ruthless efficiency. And Owies isn't making the tackles, JSOS will. So I just feel that having them extra targets to get them deep is the secret here. And JSOS is the master at tapping it on. So Fogarty, Motlop are going to embrace that, particularly Motlop. So I figured that just helps Motlop, but also helps Harry because Harry can go up the ground and be the outlet ball, which against this side with that forward pressure they have, Harry's going to have to be up the wing to get Carlton out of shit. So then we've got some targets inside as well. And would you want kick into Owies and Kerno or do you want them kicking to Jesus and Kerner, bigger bodies who can push the game?
I think probably my only, I guess, the rebuttal against that is just I trust always a lot more set shot in front of goal. I still think Jack can let you down in those pressure moments in front of goal. Would probably be a bit of an argument for that. But I mean, to argue your point for another bit, going too tall, you can put guys on the bench. I don't think you're going to be out there putting, the two big forwards in there, plus Silvani, plus De Koning, plus Pitnet on the field at the same time. You can take a few of them off, but to argue the point against that, you're wasting too many rotations, having to make sure that all these talls aren't out there at the same time when you've got those big midfielders that need the rest.
I agree. I mean, Christian makes a point to back that up always, but people forget Motlop, when he's played, has more tackles inside 50, more goals.
Yeah.
So Motlop doing that role, Jesus there is that decoy. I think you look at their back line, that is where you can beat them. Pitnet, I believe Pitnet, TDK, and Jesus can play together. You're just forgetting that Jesus' job is a forward. It's only this year that he's been mixed up. But the model they've got at the moment, TDK one wing, doing the run work with Oscar McInerney, Pitnet slotting down the back as that extra, kind of like a quarterback in defense. That's what they've done the last 2 weeks, which has kind of masked the shitness of Pitnet around the ground. Then you've got a full-time role, because that's where Carlton get unstuck on transition. We get the ball back, we get to halfway. There's no one to kick into the forward line. Jesus there, furthest forward in the team, stay there, put some pressure on, stretch the back line. I just feel it makes more sense than Owies, in my opinion. And I love Matty Owies, but I just feel go into this game to win.
Yeah, it's a great argument.
I love the debate in chat. Some people, we're a better team without Silvani. We need Silvani, this team, to function. The last 3 weeks to show we don't need him. The last 3 weeks to show we do need him. I love this chat.
I just think, for me, right, if you look at the leading goal kickers this season in, actual real stats, right, Charlie Curnow and Harry, top two, right, so no-brainer. Matty Owies, right, but then you look, Motlop played, do you know what I mean, better conversion and better defensively. Jack Martin, better defensively than Owies, do you know what I mean, and similar goals to games, right, and then Jack Silvani has the same output as Jack Martin forward, but has played 70% of this season in the ruck. So people are forgetting, I think, Jesus, where we work well, Cunningham and Jesus, high half forward, right? Jesus is a better version of the two on output being playing in the ruck. So it gives Carlton that dimension. And I've just looked at this game and said, let's go in. Let's fucking go in and win the game, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you lose, you lose. But I'd rather this side here for me, because all the questions I've got about Matty Owies, he only kicks Georgia gooses. Chin Cotter, I love him. But Boyd's ability to go through their forward line and Carlton's transition last week was good, even though we made mistakes. I feel like that would scare Brisbane more than the normal side. My opinion. I could be wrong.
I do like it. I prefer as well. I think the argument you made for Jesus is actually really good to play as a pure forward. I've always preferred him as a pure forward. I know that whole second ruck scenario has worked up to a certain point, but I do like him there. And I think the one thing that people that they're forgetting, but that might have fallen by the wayside, is that there's a massive, massive, massive doubt over Jackson Payne, who has been one of their premium key defenders alongside Harris Andrews. And the one game that he missed out on this season, Jackson Payne, they lost by 3 goals against Adelaide, albeit Adelaide was going along well and it was at Adelaide Oval. But there is a real sense of we can get them up in the forward line if he doesn't play, because he's integral to the way they set up behind the ball. So I like it, Pommy. Go for broke. I think you've actually convinced me with the Jesus in, to be honest.
Well, one of my things with Jesus as well was Pitnet in the fourth quarter, it's statistically his worst. McInerney, when he's come up against big bodies, his fourth quarter is almost not there. So I thought third quarter, Carlton could quite easily go Hollands, Pitnet. Jesus, you're going to help TDK in the ruck. We're going to really stretch them now. We're going to really stretch them on the outside. And I just figured that having him there gives you that ability as well to remove a ruck, which I think at times, we all admit, Pitternet disappears. So gives you that option as well. You've got that safety covered as well. So plus I wanted to do
right. You've actually convinced me.
I don't mind the idea of Mackay and JSOS playing on Dara Joyce now. So I say let's pick this team.
I can't believe Black Dog's bullying me. Right, let's see if I can do what we did last time.
Too good, Pommy.
I believe in you, Pom.
I wouldn't, because it's not letting me do it.
Dara Joyce was a big fan favourite on my podcast for some time, but fuck me, if he's playing on Harry Mackay, we should win by 150 goals. All right.
Right, chat, you should be able to see it. I will put up the things. There we are.
Here we go.
Right, backline chat. Hit me. We'll start with Ian.
I will go for Caleb Marchbank because he's been playing good footy again. I think I saved him last week. I'll save him again this week.
Back pocket, or do you want him in the key position?
I'll take him back pocket. I think we've still got some other better keys, but he roams about.
There we are, Mr. Paolo. Let's see if I can make that bigger because people will be like, I can't see it, Bum.
There we go. I will save Mitch McGovern.
Beautiful stuff. Love that end game situation when he goes forward. Fuck,
I did like that.
Hey, you know what? Just quietly, I got slated last week for putting Mitch McGovern forward, and fucking it won us the game. So what I'll do is I'll leave my address. You can fucking email me an apology. Leg dog, we've got a backman. Who would you like to save?
I'll pick my good mate Adam Sard.
Nice. Adam Sard. So we've got McGovern, Marchbank. You know what?
Are you going to pick the statistical best defender ever? Or are you going to pick a meme?
Yeah.
There it is.
Tom does what he wants. And Pom Cotter, if you're watching, I know you do. I absolutely love you, and you're my boy. And it's nothing personal. I just want to win a final. You're back in for the granny there. Jack, we've got everyone. You have got. I'll get rid of Boyd because I've already put him. You've got Akers, Charlie Kerno, Chera, Shinkotta,
Jay Mirabello's already nailed it.
Cottrell, Cripps, Fogarty, Hewitt, Hollands, JSOS, Kemp, Martin Mackay, Motlop Newman, Owies, Pitternet, TDK, Walsh, and Wheater.
Let's pick a fullback and a halfback flanker, shall we? Rowan's right.
Yeah.
Lucky Jack is going for Plowman and Pom Cotter, which I don't mind. But yeah, we've already seen 3 or 4 Newman Weeders.
Has to be.
Right, so
the team kind of picks itself for the first 21 players, to be honest, these days.
I'm guessing Wheaterin's there. Like dog, is he?
Yeah, Weeders Newman.
Weeders Newman.
David Redbear, Rowan Verdigan, Jay Mirabello. There's enough love. Andy Hill.
Is that better as well? Is that better as well for who was it? Someone asked, can you make it a bit bigger?
Yeah.
Hopefully that's big enough. That's as big as I can make it, my friend Mardy, without revealing dodgy stuff on my screen. Midfielders, Mr. Ian, we'll start with you. Who do you want?
I will save the man he's just going to give us another match-winning moment 3 games in a row. It's Blake Acres. Build the man a goddamn statue.
Future third, baby.
Yeah, Marsh, if you're watching.
Pom, you and I got slated when he came across. We did a video on Blue Abroad and we said he'd bring finals composure to the team and everyone abused the fuck out of us. He's not composed, he can't kick.
Best on for Freo's final series last year.
Yeah.
Mate. He's
best on. What happened to them? You take the Acres out of Freo and look what happens.
The ass falls out of it. Shout out to Damo who's watching.
Big shout out, Damo. I also remember Acres is probably statistically the best St Kilda finals player in history since 1966. So we'll take that one as well. Mr. Paolo, midfielders.
Who am I saving here? Who have we got? We need someone in the centre line. Let's save straight in the guts. Captain Cripps.
Cripper.
Yep, straight in the guts.
Black.
Just to fuck around a little bit, I'm going to put Pitto as our starting ruck.
I thought you were going to have him as a starting winger for a second.
Oh. No, I just want to see him and Omac at the opening bounce instead of him and TDK.
Like yep.
Oh, okay, so you've gone Pitter. I am going to throw a curveball here, chat. Which I don't often do. Right?
You've done it like 6 times tonight.
I am going Cottrell on the other wing.
Yep.
Whoa.
Like it.
I'm going Cottrell on the other wing to give us as much diversity.
As much room in the forward line as you can. Yeah.
Hey, I'm all about the storyline, baby. I'm all about the storyline.
Every good team needs a redhead as well.
We need 2 midfielders, right?
Pick your
and they're
mids,
basically our
chat.
followers. So you've got the usual messes. You've got Kerno, Cheddar, Chincotta, Cunningham, Doc, Fogarty, Hewitt, Ollens, JSOS, Kemp, Martin, Mackay, Motlop, Owies, TDK, and Walsh. Please make sure
Just
that
pick
you
the
get.
players that we just pick the players we need.
Terrible.
We've got Walsh. We've got like massive.
Mate, Jimmy Faz has absolutely riled this chat up. They're still talking about JSOS. Who are we putting in the midfield? There we go. Rowan, Ches Walsh, Andy Hill, Walsh, Chera.
Yep.
It looks like I'm pretty sure that this is like real life.
Bevtone, Walsh, Chera, Doc, Sapphire,
Walsh, Chera.
Okay, Walsh and Chera.
That's a lot.
Beautiful.
I have heard rumours that if we ever, when they retire, can't get a new whiteboard because they are actually permanently indelible on there.
Vossi's tattooed him on the team sheet on his chest.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Right, here we go. So now we're on to the forwards. This is where it's going to get tricky. Starting with you, Ian.
Yeah, this is very difficult because what chaos could I cause? How do I best set this up? Just to make sure, because actually I am a little bit worried with the chat. I've got to save Harry Mackay. I just got to be certain that he stays in and he's definitely there because he literally, if he's on the open market, because this is it. I feel like I had so many people at my work keep telling me Harry Mackay shit. And it's like, mate, if he's on the open market right now, every single club in the AFL is taking him straight away. No debate. Harry's in.
Yep.
You've only got to watch Blue Abroad to feel how I feel about Harry, honestly. And if anyone wants more smoke, I'm giving out.
If you want to watch,
smoke.
15 minutes of Pom abusing someone in chat,
was good.
For suggesting we trade Harry, it's good viewing. Monday show, Blue Abroad.
Look, I've got tiny kids. I'm used to fucking stupid comments, but fuck me. Paolo.
Yep.
Are you putting in the
I'm going to say the man of the moment, the man who would turn the half forward flank around. He goes by the name of Jack Martin.
You.
I was going to say, we've got that excited with banter selections and stuff that we have actually forgot people are fit. Martin, I've just realised we haven't got Kemp. It's a fucking hell.
Oh,
shit. Tell you what, be very afraid, chat. This could backfire on Pom trying to be spooky. Leg Dog, who are you picking?
So who have we got? I'm gonna pick. Oh shit! There's so many good players here. I'm gonna pick Motlop. Motlop can come in. I'm not making a call on one of the tools.
Motters. Okay. I can't, even though I want to be creative. Like,
so
there's one
2 forward spots, chat. Owies, TDK, J Sauce, Fogarty, Chincotta, Cunningham, Doherty, Hewitt, Hollins. Kemp.
Kemp. Right, so who we got?
I can see a couple of Fogartys. I can see one TDK, but chat hasn't really moved for a little bit. JSOS, Fog, Mott's, Owies. Oh, this is going to be tough. Everyone's got different answers.
Oh, JSOS, Fog.
Fog. I've seen 4 Fogs so far, so I reckon he might end up in.
Looks like Fog and JSOS because we had loads of JSOSs here. Look.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yep. I reckon it's a Fog and JSOS type operation.
Chat, you've made me
Jesus
so
is
proud. Chat, you've made me so proud.
You made a fantastic case for JSOS, Tommy. A fantastic
for sure.
I just say, and I've never been JSOS's number one fan. So, Jack, if you're watching, fuck me, mate. I tell you.
Is that an instruction?
Do you know what I mean? Like, Jesus. Right, so we've got.
Look at that list of players. We've got to pick the bench and the sub, but look at the quality of players in that list.
How good is this when we're fucking full strength?
Mate,
right,
going into a fucking prelim against Brisbane with a full strength list. Jesus Christ. The only bloke not playing Zach Williams, and he'd be playing if we didn't put him on the long-term injury.
Yeah. Right, so we've got to do the bench, chat, and we've got to get this right. So, Ian, we've got to get this right.
This is tough because there is a lot of players I want to save. I'm going to Koning because he was so big for us on the weekend. Like those 2 goals when we needed it, my goodness. And yeah, let's go the tools.
Yeah, the tolls. Right. Okay. TDK straight in. Paolo, bench.
George Hewitt.
Jeez, this is hard.
Georgie Porgy.
George Hewitt. Black Dog.
Are you picking the next bench, Pom?
Yeah.
Kemp.
Beautiful.
Bobby Doc.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got into a final without
So
my hero.
Chat.
Right, Chat.
Okay.
Chat gets to pick the sub. And look at that. Like, these are all realistic sort of names, right?
Tell you what, Jesus, can you imagine getting paid for this? Can you imagine? Imagine getting paid for this. This is tough. Can you imagine having to look any of them 4 in the eye and say, "Oh, sorry, you're not playing this week"?
I remember when it was tough early in the year because we couldn't find fucking 15 players, let alone we've got 30 to choose from.
It's funny. A good mate of mine works at Melbourne, right? And we were actually chatting because he watches this show every so often, and he watched it last week. But he was saying, "Can you imagine doing this in 2017?" And I was like, to be honest, we'd probably just have 1 vote each for the entire team and just dart throw 12.
It's Holland by a long way, by the way.
Yeah,
Chat.
Holland's getting heaps of love.
Wow, okay. Yep.
I reckon, just quietly, I wouldn't be surprised if we've nailed this team. And some people might be shocked. I reckon we've just nailed this team, right? I genuinely believe that team is fucking sexy. Look at this team, chat. This team is honestly, it's great.
It's like, remember we made the case last week against Sydney that any argument you make to bring players in, it's almost all right. You can make an argument for all of them, which is this is the best. It's just the best scenario to be in. We've been asking to be in this situation for years since this thing started. Really,
I agree.
I reckon.
Mate, I agree with you. I mean, Chincotta, Cunningham, and Owie is probably really stiff, but Jesus, look at who we've brought in: Boyd, quality, Martin Mackay, quality. Like, honestly, that's like, the first time I found Cardi B's OnlyFans.
Who came out of the side? Cunningham, Chincotta,
Owies,
Kennedy, and Owies. It's hard to argue when you line all the names up together, isn't it?
Someone's going to be stiff, and that's
Doherty will start on field over Cottrell. That's my only thing that we've got the players right, but we might have the starting 20.
You know what? I'm willing
18
to.
slightly wrong.
I did that just because I wanted Cottrell in. But
I know you did.
I'll compromise because my OCD is. Eddie, to answer your question, you've got to remember he was suspended though, so he is fully trained with all of them.
He played VFL a couple of games, didn't he?
If you were confident of Kennedy playing, Boyd is 20 times fitter than Kennedy and also not being injured. So I like that team.
It's beautiful. Well done, gentlemen. Well done.
Great stuff.
And chat, well done.
This is going to be exciting. Make sure you tune in to me and Lack Dog. We will be doing this. It's Thursday, teams, isn't it, Lack?
Tomorrow night, baby. 6 o'clock tomorrow night.
So we'll see it. Ian, have you got anything on this week, my friend?
Yes, we'll be recording a match build-up, so that will be very exciting to get out before the game. And then, match review, and then another build-up next week for the grand final, which is going to be absolutely massive. Cannot bloody wait.
I can't wait to hear it. I am amped. Paolo, have you got anything planned this week?
We've got plenty going on. We've got the Jumper Punch. We're doing a mini match preview on our own channel tomorrow with a very, very, very special guest from Brisbane. He was part of their premiership era. He played with them. He's a very, very handy player too. So I'm not going to reveal who it is. You'll have to sit tight and see who it is. We're going to be recording that tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. So sit tight for that. And then it is SEN talkback pretty much all weekend up until the soccer starts. So post-game, give us a call. We've got plenty to go through. It's going to be a big build-up into Saturday. And if you're down there at Princes Park on Saturday, come say hello because I'll be there before I jettison into the SEN studios.
I love it. It. And Mr. Lacus of the Dog Variety, what are you doing this week?
Yep, so 6 o'clock tomorrow, Blue Broad channel. Pom and I will be doing the live teams as they drop. As always, they'll get spoiled on Twitter about 2 minutes before we reveal them, but it'll be fun. Then Saturday, I will also be at Icon Park. So if you're at Icon Park, come and say g'day. I'll be there watching the game, losing my mind. Probably be the guy in the ball on the ground crying. And then it'll be fan cams and reviews. And Sunday, Pom, although I'm not sure what time, we may have to reschedule. But Sunday, the Pom and Lex show. By the way, if you didn't watch that last week, we've already nailed about 6 predictions that have come out since then. So we're reviewing all the teams, their off-season moves. We'll do another 6 teams this week, and then the following week we'll do 6 more, including Carlton. So it's going to be great. We'll be doing that throughout the trade period and off season. So stay tuned for that.
Hey, Dog, you good? Yeah, that is spot on. If you want to come and abuse Faz because he hates JSOS, me and Faz will be doing the Round Bowl show on Friday, the usual time, because no one cares about GWS and Collingwood. Tomorrow, come and see us. And on Sunday, we'll arrange the time, but we'll be doing another 6-part thing. And my preview's coming up probably tomorrow afternoon when I find it. And I might try and find some time for a little bit of an AMP video. I have an AMP video planned for Harry Mackay. So I thought we'd get into that. And when I'm proven right, when Boyd plays tomorrow, I might do a Boyd pump-up video as well. You can all come in there and say, I'm so sorry, Pom. Boyd is my favourite player. But until then, much love, everyone. Look after yourselves. Rest up, because we're about to go to war on Saturday. Can't wait for it. Love you all. And we'll be back next week to do the grand final version. See you soon.
Up the Baggers.